So the brief has been approved and locked, and I've kicked off now the creative director agent and another agent called the insights manager. Both of these agents run the insights manager first, which is an input into the creative director agent. But before I sort of show you the output of that, it's worth noticing on the right-hand side another operator surface or a web page that is available for every single campaign. And this is called the campaign dashboard. And in the campaign dashboard, it's live. It gets updated every time we run something on the left-hand side with Claude. It contains the DNA of the campaign, which we've already covered in the brief. And then it has all the phases of the campaign. So phase 0, we touched on earlier, that's the foundations. That is inherited through every campaign. We've done the fact find. And now we're at the concept design phase. And you'll see that there's a few pending phases further on, which we'll touch on shortly. The first part of the concept design, as I mentioned before, is the insight brief, which I've got open in this tab here. The insight brief looks at the target market and looks at trying to understand the target market and what's driving their needs. And the insights that matter for this newsletter, it's identified as so forth. First of all, insight 1 is that the target market, founders, CEOs and so forth, have got burned believing the last pitch. They don't trust the next confident voice. They actually trust the receipts or the outcomes. So they've earned skepticism. And it explains why now it is important. It has evidence of this, why it matters, and so forth. And then also has some suggestions of big idea hooks. So anti-hype construction, the one I voice that leads with a send back, not the win. The second insight is around people who are building this myself right now, and I'm quietly stuck at the part the tools don't solve. I want to read over the shoulder of someone who's one step ahead of me. So the operators stop waiting for the perfect vendor, is wiring it themselves. They're using Claude, N8N, and other tools, but they've hit the wall. They don't know where to go. Why now? The market context, evidence of this, why it matters, some ideas that could send to the creative director, and how confident they are in this insight. A third insight, the polished case study and the slide deck consultant are exactly what failed me. Proof for me now looks like the messy real thing, dated. And then what it does is the insights manager doesn't just look at insights for the market. They also look at channel insights. So what's the most effective channels for the budget that it's been given? And it gives some examples of, in fact, it gives some recommendations on the channel and why. So my personal Soundtrak page, my personal LinkedIn, that's owned media, my current newsletter, which already has subscribers, personal DM or direct marketing at launch, to known voices, or reciprocal mentions between my newsletter and other newsletters. And give some other examples of channels where you could potentially utilize. And again, this is a feeder into the creative director. It's the insight. It also looks at and basically has a register of things that it doesn't like and it's decided are not correct, and so forth. So once the insight's set and provided to the creative director also relies on a best practices library, which is designed by myself. And this is basically a table of campaigns that have been run over the years, and particularly things I've been involved in, NetWealth and Soundtrak, but also other companies, Airbnb and Beta Shares and Aladdin Wealth and Apple and a whole lot of different industries, telco industries, travel and hospitality and so forth. These are what we call best practices. And again, the creative director can draw on these as an input into its creative direction. And you can see from here what's involved in each one. It has the big idea, why it worked, what should the creative director steal, and anti-patterns and risks. It also has links to the website that it can draw on and so forth. The other so that's what it can draw on in terms of creating its concept trio. So what then happens is the creative director spits out a concept, and it has three concepts. Safe, which is one concept. You can see down the left-hand side, this is all the stuff it's doing in the background. Safe, smart, and wild are the three, and here's the summary of it all. And then it asks, on the left-hand side, you'll see it asks me to choose one of the three, or I could merge them, or I could go back to them and actually say, hey, can we do this or that? But before I actually approve any of these, I've actually got to read it all, and hence the operator or human in the loop, and hence the web page. So for each of these three ideas, it creates the big idea, a weekly newsletter that publishes one page from the actual build log of AI Studio, the real thing, mid-build with a send back left in, so a burned operator finally reads someone showing the working instead of selling the outcome. The audience insight, which we saw earlier, the competitive frame, so what we're trying to achieve, the key messages, the working shown, one page from the build every week, some supporting messages, a 15-second radio ad. So this is an unhurried, so you bought the AI that was going to replace your team. It didn't hold. So here's a different offer. Every week I publish one page from actually building mine, where it started, where it ended, the send back left, not the case study, the working file underneath. Soundtrak. A mood board, so you get a feel for what it looks like. And this has picked up the branding that we had earlier from the tenant, from phase 0, fonts, palettes, aesthetic directions. It gives examples of previous companies who've done similar things. It then goes through the channel rollout, where it's going to be rolled out, and so forth. Any risks, and then it goes through the next version of this. So you go through smart, etc. And I'll fly through this, and then wild. One of the other cool things that it provides you is at the very bottom, it goes through some examples of what the creative director could build, and it's actually built some versions of this that you can choose if you look in your in the folder. But then what you can also look at is things that the creative director considered but dismissed. And this is using a divergent convergent thinking model or framework. So it's got a whole lot of other ideas which you might go, hey, I really like these ideas. Can we weave this in, or so forth? So, for example, it came up with an idea of terminology about the AI liner notes, and that's, Soundtrak is music, so the liner notes is to the CD or vinyl, but this was not really clearly articulated and related to the signal, so it decided it didn't want to continue all that, and I gave it some feedback. I didn't like that as well during the chat, and so forth. So my feedback is that I like the receipt, but I don't love the name, as it is ambiguous as to what receipt means. Also, many of the features have already been built, so having a weekly I built this won't work. Finally, I'm thinking we can outreach to some specific people. Can you find some more? These are go-to-market specialists and people who are very vocal on AI and go-to-market in LinkedIn. So you can see on the left-hand side, the AI Studio has taken that feedback on and is now updating the feedback and will come back with a single creative direction for me to approve. The creative director has come back with a few more names for the system: the debrief, the build notes, what it cost me, the post-mortem. I really like the debrief. It's the recommended, but it's broad enough to mean to be not just AI specific if I want to grow the newsletter into something else. So I'm going to choose that. You'll notice now that the concept design has been selected and built. And what this looks like is a name, the debrief, what it signals, what the big idea is, the premise, the audience insight, the key messages, the radio ad, look and feel. It also has all of the other information we saw before, including a channel layout and so forth. And that took probably about half an hour to an hour of time.